Now that our artboard and timeline have been created and we've imported some media into our timeline, let's talk about now how to actually begin editing that content. Now, video editing, I always say on a technical level, isn't hard. It's cutting and trimming. That's it. But the difficulty of video editing comes down to the art form of communication. How do you communicate in the way that you trim and cut? If you watch films or TV shows, the way that they're edited is the main source of manipulation of their audience. If you feel something during a film, odds are the editor had a hand in that. Now, while Photoshop doesn't give us the full breadth of tools that Premiere would to help us edit intentionally, it does offer the very basics, and we can still start to practice those basics and understand the program even more. So in this tutorial, let's talk about how to trim and edit video inside of Photoshop. Now, before we can start editing video, we have to actually import content that we need. So again, just like in the previous tutorial, we imported audio using our music note pull down. Likewise, we're going to use our film strip pull down to add media. Now, before we do this, I don't like the fact that we're working on a transparent background, because you'll notice that right after my playhead leaves layer 0, which is white, Marsala, welcome to my podcast. On this episode, we're going to talk, it cuts down to invisibility or transparency, and we don't want that. I want to fill layer 0 with a solid color. I'm going to choose black for this, but you guys can choose whatever color you want. I'm going to get out my paint bucket tool here. I'm going to default my colors to black and white, and on layer 0, I'll select it in my layer panel. I'm going to click and fill this with color. But you'll notice something weird. Even though layer 0 is selected in my layer panel, I can't fill it. I get the strike through error in my artboard. Look it down in the timeline panel as to why our playhead is not over the slug. We have to make sure that our playhead is over the area we want to adjust. This is important. So now that my playhead's over that layer in the timeline panel, I can click and fill that with black. So now that it's filled, I can start to trim this to be the length of my entire podcast. To trim a layer inside of the timeline panel, you have to hover your mouse either over the beginning or the end of that clip or that slug. I'm going to hit Big Mountain a few times so I can zoom in. Here's what that trim icon looks like. It's a little bracket with a left and right facing arrow. That means that I can click and drag this to change the duration, or I can click and drag it the other way to shorten the duration. In this instance, I'm going to hit a little mountain a few times. I want to drag and trim this out to be the entire length of my podcast. So now, as I play my podcast, it will always be on a black background. Welcome to my podcast. On this episode, we're going to talk about what it means to actually make it in the creative industry. Good. So now we can start to add media on top of this, but we have a little bit of an issue. We only have one layer. And since layer 0 is our black background, I don't want to undo what we've already created. I want to add things on top of it because layer order matters. We've learned layer order in our layer panel. Well, it's the same in the timeline panel with video. Anything on top of layer 0 is going to show instead of the black background. And this is why we have the black background as a safety net, so we don't accidentally see transparency. To add a new video layer, you click on this, and it's called a video group. A video group is a new video layer. So if I click on new video group, it creates a new video group or a new video layer. If we look over in our layer panel, we can see that created as a video group and a pull down. It's kind of like a folder, and all the clips that we put on this video group will exist inside of this folder in our layer panel. So I want to add my face, for better or for worse, at the beginning of this podcast, because I introduced myself here. Check it out. Hey everyone, my name's Alan Marsala. Welcome to my podcast. So it'd be cool if I could have myself on screen here. So let's, on the new video group 1, add media. Now I have a folder of all the different media that I've gathered for this project so far. You guys should do the same. Have a folder on your computer and start to just save or add video files, image files, and anything else you may need for your project. Now, if nothing is showing when you go to import media, sometimes this all formats pull down will default to something other than all formats. For example, when I first opened this, it defaulted to some 3D file, and that's not what I wanted. Why it does that, I'm not entirely sure, but if you're not seeing something, toggle that down and click All Formats. Now, here's my happy self. I'm going to click on this, and I'm going to hit Open. And just as expected, it adds a 5-second version of this still image on Video Group 1. Now, just like the black layer beneath it, I could trim this to be the entire length of my video. So maybe I wanted this to be down here, or I wanted it to kind of move around as the entire podcast was happening. Now, no one wants to see my face that long, so I don't want it on screen for that long. But know that if it's a still image, you can trim it to be as long as you want. In this case, I want this to be on there just long enough to be there for the intro. So then I'm going to trim this to where my intro ends. Now, if I don't like where this is, I can have my move tool and just move this around. Remember, it's still Photoshop. Just because we're working in video doesn't mean that all the tools and all of the things we've learned in the menu bar cease to exist. A lot of times students forget what they've already learned. Don't forget your trainings, young Padawans. So take your image and you can drag it wherever you'd like. I'm going to drag this down here. And this starts my conversation about these guides that we saw earlier. These guides are called the title action safe lines or margins, and these tell us where our elements in our videos can exist. This inner box is the title safe margin, meaning anything that's text should not be outside of this guide. The outer rectangle is the action safe line, which means anything that is important to the video itself shouldn't exist outside of these margins. Now, that doesn't mean that video won't be out here. Obviously, we'll have video that fills the frame, but it means if it's narratively critical, then it shouldn't exist outside of these boundaries. So I can have my face exist up to this corner. Because my face is important to this part of the video, I can't have it down here. Title action safe margins exist due to old broadcast standards back when screen sizes weren't fully regulated. You could have a full screen video instead of a widescreen video, and it would actually cut off certain parts of the screen. Title action safe margins made sure that regardless of aspect ratio, the parts of the screen were always visible. This isn't as big of a deal now that most screens these days are 16:9 widescreen, but it's still something we should be aware of and adhere to as we go. Now I want to add some text that has my name on it, so that way as I introduce myself, it can be there as well. I'm going to get out my type tool and click on my artboard all the same. Now several things happened here that may make you panic. First of all, my text is black, not a big deal. I'll Control A or Command A, and I'll come over to my character panel, and I'll change the color of this to be white. Good. Now, where did my picture go? Well, let's look down in the timeline panel to find out. Check it out. Because we're working on Video Group 1, any new element that we add is going to come after the previous element. Well, we don't want this. We want my name to exist with my picture. Well, then we have to add a new video group. I'm going to click on the media icon and hit New Video Group. Once we do that, we create New Video Group 2. Now I can take my name and drag it up and drag it over. And then I can trim that out. So now I have two things living on the same area, but they have to exist on two video groups in my timeline panel. Now to stay organized, I like to have my video groups named and contain similar items. So for video group 1, I'm going to double click video group 1 in the layer panel, and I'm going to rename this Still Images. So anything that's a still is going to go in video group 1. Video group 2, likewise, is going to be text and titles. So anything that's text or titles is going to go in video group 2. Now I'm going to make one more video group. Add new video group, and I'm going to call this one video clips. Because these are the three things that are required for your final video project. You have to have some video clips, you have to have some still images, and you have to have text and titles. So having each of those on their own video group is going to help you stay organized. Now, as a rule of thumb, text and titles generally go on top of everything. So we can actually change the order of our video groups after we've made them by simply clicking and dragging them above one another in our layer panel. So let's play back what we have so far. Hey everyone, my name's Alan Marsala. Welcome to my podcast. On this episode, we're going to talk about what... Good. I'm going to move my text over a little bit to be more in line. And in fact, I think I'm going to move my image over here and move my name to be over here as well. Now, the title of the podcast is coming up. What it means to actually make it in the creative industry. What it means to make it in the creative industry. Well, I might as well add a new title here. I'm going to hit my text tool. I'm going to click. Again, don't panic when things disappear because it's going to create it after that existing title. I'm going to name this What It Means to Succeed in the Creative Industry. I'm going to use my character panel and my paragraph panel to change the way that this looks. Make it look a little more tightly. Now, don't forget, if I select something in the layer panel, I can come up here and I can align this to my artboard boundaries. Now, if yours are grayed out, hit these three little lines up here in the option bar, and then make sure you align to canvas instead of selection. And that should make your align buttons appear. I want to align center vertically and center horizontally to make this perfectly center. So now I have a title for my podcast after my name and picture come up. Hey everyone, my name's Alan Marsala. Welcome to my podcast. On this episode, we're going to talk about what it means to actually make it in the creative industry. Let's get started. So right after I say let's get started, that's when I want the title to appear. Creative industry. Let's get started. Now I think this would be a really cool time to input some video. So now on my video clips video group, I'm going to hit add media. I'm going to come to one of these video clips that I found. I'm going to choose this artist one that I made. And there it is. Now it's probably a bit too big. And if it is, we can always just free transform by hitting Control T on the keyboard to free transform it. It'll want to convert it into a smart object just like it did for when we used animation. Now I can scale this down a little bit and hit enter on the keyboard, and there it is. And maybe I want to change the transparency a little bit. Well, I can in my layer panel. And because we have our black background, it's not going to be transparent beneath it. Again, don't forget everything we've learned. And now we have this video existing over the area of my picture and my name. That's not what I want. So we have to now trim this video clip to be the start of the title. Drag it over, and now I have a nice transition. Welcome to my podcast. On this episode, we're going to talk about what it means to actually make it in the creative industry. Let's get started. I recently ran into... Good. So now it's starting to make sense, and we have our organized video groups that help us make sense of what's going where. Now, if you wanted things to be on top of other things, so for example, if I wanted my actual title to be on top of my face and my name, I would need to create another video group. Maybe I could call it Text and Titles 2, and then it could live on top of that. So be organized, but don't be afraid to create as many video groups as you need to hold your content. Now, I'm going to come through and I'm going to add a little bit more. I'm going to speed up this portion of the tutorial just so I can show you what I'm doing. And then on the back end, I'll explain it. Okay, so I've gone through and I've added some additional video elements on my video clips video group. And I want to discuss a little bit of what I did here and why. Let me play it back first so you can see what it is that I did. I'll start from my title. I ran into an old acquaintance from high school. He's a musician and he's made a living now doing his music work. In a conversation I was having later with my parents, I was telling them about him because they knew that we were friends back in high school, and they kind of expressed that they felt sorry for him, that he was kind of floundering around, not really succeeding or making it with his own talent. And I pushed back a little bit because he's made music for... Okay, So you can see several things here. One, the timing of how long my clips are is dictated by what I'm talking about. This is called the see-dog, say-dog technique, and it applies to almost everything you see in like documentary film, where whatever the person is talking about, you should show footage that matches what they're talking about. Say dog, see dog. And so as I'm talking about different things, I'm putting up video content that goes with that topic. I found all these videos and stills from Pexels.com, and I just listened to my podcast and searched for things on Pexels and downloaded things that went with what I was saying. And that's how I created this video. Now, you should do the same. Listen to your podcast, go and find video clips and stills that match what you're talking about. It's going to make your process that much easier. Now, my picture here of turtles pushing one another, it's kind of supposed to be a little funny. I need to trim this to fit, but I also could cut this as well. To cut a video clip, select it in your timeline. Make sure that your playhead is on the area that you want to cut, and then come over here to the scissors icon, and then click it. It splits that clip at your playhead. And so now, maybe I wanted my turtles to come back later, I could just drag this downfield, and then bring the first part back. It's kind of like shuffling cards in a deck. And so if you have a clip that you want to return to later, feel free just to cut it and then push the rest of it downfield and return to it later. Now in this case, I don't need my turtles to come back. I'm going to click on that clip then and just hit delete on the keyboard to delete it, leaving just my first clip of my turtles. Now I'm not going to finish the entire 3 minutes of my podcast for this tutorial. But I have shown you now how to add every type of element that you would need to add for your project. Still images, text, and video. And we've added them all on their own video groups. Now the last thing that I want to talk about is transitions and animation. So transitions are right here next to the cutting icon. It's this little half black, half white square. This icon, if you click on it, gives us very basic transitions. Fades, crossfades, and different fades with black, white, and color. Now it defaults to a fade, and fades are great because fades can be placed at the beginning or end of different clips. So if I wanted to fade my face in, I could take my fade effect, click and drag it down to the beginning or end of my clip. You can see the little black boxes there that indicate where it's going to go. And this fade defaults to 1 second in length. We can see that in the duration pull down up top. If I let go, it's now added a fade. And I can tell because if I zoom in here, I see this little crescendo triangle. This indicates the length of the fade. And sure enough, at 0, my face is gone. And at 1 second, it's faded in. Now I can change the length of this by actually hovering my mouse over the end of the transition and then trimming it out. So now it's a 2-second transition. I can apply a fade to my text as well. That way my name fades in. Fades really add a lot because those hard cuts can really distract and detract from your message. The other type of transition that we have is called the crossfade. And crossfades are applied between clips. So if I wanted to transition, for example, between the disapproval hand over here and the hand that writes no on the chalkboard, I want this to crossfade. Well, what's a crossfade? Well, let's see. I'm going to click on my disapprove clip and let's apply a crossfade between them. It looks like a little hourglass now. If I play this, check it out, it crosses between the two of them. And that's what a crossfade does. Be careful not to crossfade between everything. You need to use transitions sparingly. A lot of times when students find transitions, they start applying them everywhere. You get a transition and you get a transition, and that's not what we want. Transitions are communication devices, and we should deploy them only when necessary. In this case, crossfades are good for transitioning between clips of similar messages or to show a passage of time. Lastly, I need to add some keyframes to my text. I want to make my text move around a little bit. So just like in the animation tutorials, I can toggle down my text and titles, and I have my transform options for my text layers. So if I click right here, I can add a transform keyframe to have my title move around. So I'm going to click on the stopwatch for transform. That creates a keyframe at its current position. Well, this is where I want it to end up, so I'm going to drag this keyframe down a little bit. And then I'm going to take my title. I'm going to drag it down a little bit. That creates a brand new keyframe. And now between those two keyframes, my title is going to move up. That's it. That's everything you have to have present in your video project. You're going to use your podcast audio, you're going to add stills, video clips, and text and titles, and you're going to add basic keyframes to some of those elements. That's it. The real challenge here is just to fill the entire length of your podcast. I want you to have fun though. I know when we often think of making a video, some of us freeze because we're in a design class. I didn't know we're making videos. We're not. We're really just applying that say dog, see dog technique for the length of our podcast. So go find some great media that matches what you're talking about in your podcast. Import it and start to edit it inside of Photoshop. In the next tutorial, I will show you how to export your projects to upload.